I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And I am excited. This is definitely an episode that I've wanted to do for a while. And I have Adam and Paul from Shatter, Bots FC here to talk about Shatter. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. So Shatter is definitely one of the prettiest robots in BattleBots. That is for sure. And just, I love the hammer weapon. When you're able to get in there and get a shot, it's just, really exciting. And it's so funny that this is the interview that I do following talking to Jake Ewert, because I brought up the fact that Hydra's not really armored on top, and so a bot like Shatter could probably do some damage to it, was my thought. But you don't have Hydra on the schedule, so we'll talk about the robots that you do have on the schedule. And that started with the first match versus Huge. That was definitely, I'm sure a tough match for you guys, but the interesting thing is Huge is definitely not the same Huge that we're used to seeing. Jonathan's got some bite behind that weapon this season, and everyone has had a pretty difficult challenge facing them. What did you think going into that, and were you kind of surprised by the level that he came with for that match?
We were definitely surprised by the durability and power of that weapon. I mean, we've all seen Huge through the years, and we've seen it at the smaller weight classes, and I think they finally got the big one working like the small ones work with that reliably hard-hitting weapon. We figured it wasn't a great matchup for us. We're not going to get a lot of power into the swing. We might be able to hit a belt or something, which we did do, but we figured we'd be able to slow down the weapon, get in there, and maybe push him around from below. But every time we got in there and maybe slowed down the weapon, we got shot so far apart that they spun up again by the time we were able to get back to them, which was just not what we were expecting.
Yeah, we were really hoping to sort of command him around the arena. That's typically Huge's weakness, right? Is that he's not getting a whole lot of traction. He's kind of bouncing all over the place, takes a long time to spin up. And pretty early on in our fight, we realized those things weren't happening. And we're like, wow, Huge really came back with a vengeance, and then they're taking it out on us right here, round one.
I figure when we slammed him into the wall, like into the shelf, I thought we broke the weapon. It's not a lot of people can run full speed into the shelf, dead stop their weapon, leave an enormous gash, and then keep going. I was stunned.
Yeah, it was very surprising. And I mean, I'm sure that, Jonathan well from also, doing the Norwalk stuff. I mean, he's had the smaller version there, and great to see someone that has really struggled in some past years have success. I'm sure it's not always fun to see it against your bot, but at the same time, it's still a great story there that I think is unfolding this season.
Yeah. And we adore their whole team, Jonathan and the entire Huge team. They're so friendly, so supportive. We were very happy to fight them, and even if it came at our expense, just very happy to see the robot really working like it should after all the effort they're putting into it. So that's really rewarding, even if we're on the the other side of it.
It's great to see two robots come out and be strong and fight each other how they're supposed to. And in that fight, I think both robots were working pretty well. We were oversteering a little bit because of my driving, but you saw two robots going at it hard. And to see Huge performing so well, yeah, it'd be nice if we win the fight. But it was really great to see them get it dialed in, because we've known them since before either of us were on BattleBots, and it's great to be fighting each other on TV. It was fun.
Yes, for sure. Now the match that I think, you were looking forward to, I think a lot of people, including myself, were looking forward to when I kind of looked at the schedule, going up against Beta, because especially when you you have a robot that draws inspiration from you know, another robot. And not only that, but just the fact that there are so few hammer bots out there that really, when you have a robot like Beta and someone like John Reed, who's been doing this forever and like has like this classic, like very iconic hammer bot to go up against them, that had to be amazing.
Equal parts excitement, equal parts dread. Um, we've seen Beta since I think what was it, season 5 of Comedy Central when they brought it, and the magnets were so strong that it got stuck to the floor and couldn't move, and there were all these rumors about it being so powerful it would dent the floor, and it was just this mythical robot. And then I think it even couldn't make it to season 1 of ABC, right? Because it also had more things that went wrong in shipping or something. And then when it finally came to TV and was amazing, and then now we're gonna actually get to fight it a few seasons later. Like Beta was just this completely epic mythical robot. It proved electric hammers could work. Ironically, it's not electric anymore, but it proved electric hammers could work. So we said we'll make a brushless electric hammer. We'll push it even further. But there was a lot of inspiration from Beta, a lot of inspiration from Kilohertz in the original genesis of Shatter for sure. So very exciting to go up against John Reed.
Yeah, and while we were excited about it, I mean, it was a pretty high stakes match. It's always fun to talk, smack about other teams that have a similar attack style as you. And when people go on Reddit and everyone's voting, oh, who's the best hammer robot, Beta or Shatter, it's easy to, step back from the side and be like, oh, totally us. But then as soon as we're matched head to head, it's like, oh no, now we have to like actually execute on what everybody thinks of us. So
And the thing about Shatter is it's not necessarily made to fight hammer robots. I mean, there's not a lot of hammer robots in the field. We designed it to fight spinners. And so we're a huge target for hammer robots. We're big, we're flat, like a lot of room to try and armor it. I always used to say like our ideal opponent was Duck, and our robot is basically shaped like Duck. I was like, man, they really must be looking forward to this. We're just a giant target for the hammer.
Yeah, like that's the thing when you have the surface area. But yeah, I mean, it's great though, because I think that even though they're both hammer bots, they're still different in so many ways. Like Shatter, it's funny because the website says like a sword, a sword aspect, and I think of Shatter more as like a sword kind of hammer versus the hammer that Beta has. Although they even kind of changed it up this season because they came with a different weapon against Kraken. So it's just kind of interesting, all of those different iterations.
Yeah, it's funny. I when we both designed the single piece hammers at the same time, so our sword hammer and we have another one this season, but we were designing them at the same time completely separately. Beta couldn't make that season, so we debuted the sword last season when Beta wasn't here, but they've had that one sit in the wings. So nobody copied anyone with that. It was funny. We just both designed single piece blade, like solid metal steel hammers at the same time, which I thought was funny. I think Beta and Shatter are very different, and ironically, I think Shatter fought more like Beta, and Beta fought more like Shatter in that fight. They were very, very aggressive with the hammer, and we were kind of waiting for that one big hit. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should have played it differently.
You never know. It's all hindsight after things happen, and I can imagine too, like in the moment, especially with such, like you said, high stakes, against somebody that you really respect, that it's hard to just like be in that moment and know the right thing to do.
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, also as the match goes on, we're like kind of keeping a tally in the back of our heads of like, okay, how many hits has he got on us? How many do we have on him? Near misses. How's this looking? And I mean, halfway through that fight, when we started flailing around, at one point we were kind of in the corner upside down, is when I think we started to look at each other and we're like, maybe this isn't going as intended. Maybe we need to do something different.
Pretty much as soon as it started, I was like, these forks might be a little bit long. But I thought, we can make it work. I just need to get that one hit on the back, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they push us around. It doesn't matter if they hit our tops. None of that matters if we get around back because we'll get the KO. And we did get around back. We had them sitting right on the tips of the forks, and the hammer was broken, and the drive didn't work, and we had the hammer sitting in their guts. And I didn't have the two front wheels were kind of busted. We lost some rollers, so we didn't have enough drive power to move. The hammer couldn't fire anymore. I was like, I've got. It was such a painful moment to sit there with the hammer just jammed in the guts, and I can't even move it around, let alone smash. If we had had the power, that was the hit we had been waiting for. Nothing would have mattered if they hadn't hit that chain 10 seconds earlier. We would have had him right there. But that's how it works with a hammer. They're like I always say, hammers are targeted damage robots. And if you hit the target, you win. And if you don't, you miss. They hit the target. They hit our little chain. They knocked out our weapon. They hit the armor right over our wheels and broke our rollers. And we couldn't get around back and hit the area we were aiming for. And so that was the fight. Yeah. Once we lost the hammer and the wheels were messed up, we just the last minute was. I don't need we don't need to talk about the last minute.
It's funny though that like you mentioned what you did, because that's something that I've always observed as a fan who's not an engineer, that I've felt that the reason that so many people gravitate towards building a spinner bot is because with spinner bots there's so much potential for incidental damage. You're not meaning to hit somebody, but you just happen to hit into them and damage them because your spinner's going. Whereas with a hammer or some other types of weapons, you have to intend to hit that target. Like it's a lot more calculated.
Yeah, I always say a spinner never misses; it only hits. But a hammer can miss. Yeah.
Yes. So looking at the next opponent, of course, we can't get into the match yet, but so Horizon is certainly a bot that has quite a bit of surface area, but it's a unique problem to deal with because it's very long. It's a different kind of shape. What did you think about seeing them as an opponent? Because I mean, Josh has obviously done Norwalk stuff with Skyline, a little bit different there, but still rookie bot, unique problem to deal with. How did you feel that Shatter's chances were in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the schedule. I said, "Oh, that's a trap fight." First time I saw it. So in sports, like a trap match is something everyone expects you to win, and you go into it overconfident, and then you lose. So we definitely didn't want that to be the case. They're an interesting robot. They're a rookie robot, but those spinners, they get up to speed. They have a lot of power in them. And the first two fights, they haven't really gotten up to speed. We haven't really seen it yet. And so with any of these rookies, the question is, are they going to get it to work? Are they going to dial it in? I mean, we know it works in the lower weight classes and works pretty well. So, we armored the heck out of the robot, maximum horizontal armor configuration for that fight. So the good news is, I mean, we have a setup. We know the setup to use. We don't have to question it. We use our shock-mounted hammerhead. We use our maximum armor config. So at least we are confident in the configuration. Going against Huge, it's like, okay, we'll use the Mary Special. That's what it's for, but is it going to work? Going against Beta, it's like, well, we've got these new tops we've never tested before, and maybe we'll try these new forks, and that was the wrong choice. But this one, at least we know the configuration is the right choice, and we'll see how it goes.
Yes, absolutely. And then Ominous, another rookie bot, who unfortunately suffered significantly at the hands of Claw Viper.
Our
I
schedule is wild this year. Not like a single real true like normal robot, right? Like Huge is anti-meta. Beta's one of two hammer robots in the competition, including us. Horizon is a dual horizontal turntable spinner, and then we're fighting a OmniDriver. So our schedule is all over the place this season. But they look interesting. I'm trying to remember which fights we've seen so far, so I don't spoil any fights of theirs. But just the robot itself is beautiful. Powerful spinner. We've seen it online in other competitions. Like it can pack a punch, and the wheels are really nicely done. We were talking to them about their wheels and looking at how they custom mold all their rollers. And so the bot's just nice, compact, like beautiful looking design, very, very functional looking. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very robust too. I mean, we were pretty close with them in the pits, and we were chit-chatting and walking around, and that thing is like a little tank. They got a
Yeah.
lot packed right in there. And because they have their hub motor, there is no, pulley or chain or anything to hit on their weapon. So that presented kind of a unique problem for us.
Yeah, usually with these spinners, like, okay, we can take out these belts. A few hits here, we'll hit one of those belts. And usually, a lot of times we do. But yeah, there's no belt. There's nothing to hit. There's no exposed anything for the drive either. And the whole thing is, what was it, AR? Like the whole pod, basically.
Yeah.
So we're like, what are we gonna do to this thing? And so we figured, I don't know if they have magnets or as many magnets as we do. We thought, well, maybe we'll be able to push them around. Maybe we'll be able to control them. They don't have a ton of reach on the spinner. But if the spinner catches something, it doesn't need a lot of reach to do damage. So we figured maybe we can push them around. I think was mostly our thought. We'll push them around. We'll try and score some
Mhm.
points. As long as the robot doesn't break, we can win a judge's decision. Kind of the thought going into that one. But really, really nice bot, and we're excited they're here this season because we know the last season they couldn't make it. The bot was here, but the people
Mhm.
couldn't come. So it's really great that they're getting the opportunity to compete because it's just a beautiful robot.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, it definitely is. So Kat, like very interesting schedule. Now I will say in hindsight, there's something that I wish I was on the schedule, especially like now talking about this hammer sword concept. Last year they did a chair fight. I think that there needs to be a sword fight between Shatter and Banshee. Because David
Oh,
Small has a sword already. So
and
I
the Scorpios team has the overkill sword.
that is
So
true. That
you
is
get three teams
true.
in.
We
Yeah.
have options. That's all I'm saying. So Greg, if you're watching, we have options for a sword fight here. um, so yeah, another thing that I really wanted to ask about, because several builders have actually told me specifically for you, Adam, to say, like, interview Adam. Adam is like the builder liaison to
Mhm.
BattleBots, and you need to talk to him. So, I'm really curious because there were significant amount of changes this past season, and a lot of that came from builder feedback, fan feedback, in terms of like rule changes and different things like that. Do you feel that, at least based on what we've seen so far in the season, that was meaningful?
Yeah, so I mean, season 6 happened, and a lot of people I think were upset with a lot of stuff that happened on screen, off screen. Like it just wasn't the best season, and it was understandable because it was like the first season moving to Vegas, and there was just a lot of stuff up in the air. So there were a lot of reasons why it happened, but a lot of people didn't have a good time. So after season 6, we put together this builders organization, which I got elected the president of. So I got a lot of extra work to do in the lead up to season 7. But we kind of talked with all the builders and said, like, hey, what was it that we didn't like? Kind of split it up into just, things that were happening on set, things that were happening in the pits, and just like monetarily, how we can afford to keep putting on the show. And we talked with BattleBots and production crew, and they were super accommodating. And we got pretty much everything we asked for because the whole deal wasn't like, oh, we earned this or we need this. Like the whole thing was like, hey, we want to put on the best thing we can. We love BattleBots. We're here because we're fans, and all we want to do is make BattleBots the best show it can be. So we went with a list of the things that we thought could help make it a better show, a better season. And they agreed. And so we all got stipends this season to help build the bots. So we had more spares so we could do 4 regular season fights and a tournament and a second tournament afterwards, the Golden Bolt deal. So the reason we were able to do that was all the extra stipends we got. We were able to get better food, which was a big one. So we don't need to leave set, and we're all healthy while we're there building. And we got a revamp of the rules. That's probably the most obvious one that you can see this season is a lot of change around things like the countouts. There's a new like challenge kind of button where if you're unhappy with a judge's decision, you can film a quick 1 minute sort of like appeal. And the judges will rewatch the fight, listen to your appeal, and then they can overturn the decision if they uh, change their mind based on what you said. Because there have been instances where judges literally just didn't see something, and in retrospect have agreed that they didn't see something, but there was no way to fix it. So this is a new way that like if people agree like, oh, that was a mistake, they can go back and fix it. So that's huge. The rule changes are huge, and these were all made with a lot of surveys going out to the builders. So we're really excited about how the season is shaping up. I think the new rules, specifically like the count out rules, are really great because they're objective. There's no question of when a robot is still moving and when a robot is dead. And so it encourages like more interesting fights, and it kind of takes away that subjectivity that we had in season 6. We also changed the unstick rules. You can't get unstuck if you are alone stuck to the arena. In previous seasons, there was a lot of question around when you would or wouldn't be unstuck from the arena. Shatter has been counted out in past seasons numerous times when I was asking to be unstuck. I was like, I'm stuck, please unstick me. And they just wouldn't do it. Whereas other people would get stuck and they would get moved off. There was a rule created after Minotaur got stuck on a corner of the floor that you could be unstuck from the floor so that wouldn't happen anymore. But due to it being difficult to express and difficult to implement, and a few other notable incidents, we changed it so if you are stuck alone, there are no unsticks. If you are stuck to another robot, they will attempt to unstick you so the fight can continue, and if not, it goes to the judges. So we just removed the if we can't unstick you from the wall, like nonsense. No one ever gets unstuck from the wall. No one ever gets unstuck from the floor, but you get unstuck from each other. Just more objectivity, more fairness, removing subjectivity as much as possible. The season before, they implemented that rubric, the judges rubric, and we all loved that. The other judging change this year is we now have like sort of a liaison between like the judges and the studio and the builders, which is like the match steward role. And that's been really helpful just to communicate with production and hear like reasoning of things, and it helps with the appeals process and other things. So that was another position that was added just to smooth things over. But overall, I think the builders are much happier. I'm kind of like going on and on now, but I think we had a better time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the other major thing that came from this, and it's playing out as you can see on the show this season, is a guaranteed schedule. That's something that I know a lot of the builders were unhappy with last season, and just having 4 guaranteed fights for every team that has come there, knowing who their opponents are ahead of time, gives you a lot more latitude to plan and to organize your 2 weeks that you're there in Vegas, and that's been extraordinarily helpful.
The 4 guaranteed fights was a huge, I forgot about that one. It was a huge thing we were pushing for, because in season 6, Shatter only had 2 regular season fights, and we had 1 fight in the tournament. We were out. We had 3 fights the whole regular season. That's not good for our sponsorship relationships, especially because like we lost a fight for doing too well kind of vibe. And so we need the TV time to secure sponsorships. And this season, knowing that we were going to have 4 was huge. That enables every team to get more sponsors, to be able to say, I'm going to be on TV 4 times at least. And we had been talking a lot about like, we really want to get those fights ahead of time. We weren't sure we were going to get the fights all at once, but we had been talking about it with them. And it was like a discussion between like BattleBots and the producers and the network around like, well, if we set all these fights up, maybe the fights at the end of the year might not be that good, if we can't like plan it as we go. But we ended up doing it because we said this will be more like a sport. We can announce the schedule. People can get excited for certain fights in certain weeks. And the whole production crew bought into the sporting aspect of it. And now they're showing like your season record as you go. And yeah, we were really excited to get the fights ahead of time. That was huge. It did kind of somewhat drastically increase my stress level. I could never like there used to be a moment where you would go through a fight, you didn't know who your next opponent was, so you're like, oh, I guess I can't do anything. But now you always knew, so there was no break.
Yeah, in
But still,
seasons
we
past,
like,
we would get like an email at 2 in the morning, letting us know who we're fighting that day. So at least you can go to bed because you didn't really know what you were gonna wake up and prepare for.
yeah. Yeah, but definitely an improvement, not like waking up to like a buzz like 3 a.m. You're like, oh my God, and strategizing and everything else.
Yeah, and being there in Vegas for 2 weeks and everything that you have to do, you definitely need to get that rest in between the fights. No, I really I think that the changes from what I've heard overwhelmingly from builders this season is that they've been very happy with a lot of that. And even the fans, like, not that the fans were necessarily consulted on any of this, but from what I've seen in the forums, it seems to be an overwhelmingly positive reaction to what we've seen from these changes so far. Now, we haven't really seen anything with the appeals yet. I won't say for sure if they ever get used, but logic would dictate at some point that will happen. But as far as the other changes with especially the movement, I think more than anything, because like you mentioned, the subjectivity, and that was something big for me when I like talked about last season, is it is hard because two people can see the same thing and not agree on exactly what that level of movement was, and to take that completely out of the mix and just say, if it moves, then that's movement, makes things a lot simpler.
We went back and forth a lot on what level of movement should be okay. A lot of smaller competitions say, oh, if you can only go in a circle like that's one bot width, that doesn't count. You need to be able to go bigger than that. But then it's like, oh, so if I'm going in a circle, but it's a bigger circle, it's okay. Is that just advantageous to four-wheel drive robots who can't have it turn as tight, right? So we just took it to the most extreme to any movement because we're like, this is BattleBots. It's a fight to the death, right? Why do we have these rules in human fighting, right? Why do we count someone out when they're on the ground and they're woozy? It's like we're trying to protect the person so we don't, kill someone in the boxing arena or in MMA. But this is a robot, right? The only thing we're protecting is the monetary value, which is a lot. But you always have the choice to take your hands off the stick and get counted out. So we figured this is BattleBots, this is TV, this is the major leagues. We're gonna make it like extreme, but we coupled that too with like we're gonna need stipends because we're gonna need more spare parts. So it was all like kind of together, trying to make the best show for the fans. Like we were certainly considering the fans, for the builders, for the producers, and again, it was a real joint effort. It wasn't like a battle. It wasn't like us against BattleBots. Like we worked together to try and figure out how we can make BattleBots the best it could be so that everyone left happy, everyone left excited, and everyone left wanting to do it again. Because the vibe after season 6 was just like real kind of downer vibe. Like a lot of people didn't have a good time, and we're like, BattleBots should be a really fun time. It should be the thing that you're looking forward to, and whether you win or lose, you feel like you got a fair deal, and you feel like you had fun. And so that's really what we're pushing for. And it was a real group effort among all the parties together. But finally we had like me, one person, not like to talk to. In the past, like there's so many different builders that we couldn't conjoin in a single opinion. So I was really happy that we were able to come together, and I was just able to be the voice of everyone else. Like, it wasn't just me, it wasn't my ideas. It was working with the builders, hearing what they said, and just being their voice. So I was really excited that we were finally able to do that, finally make a singular voice so that we could have that conversation. And yeah, I think it paid off.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe I would
absolutely.
have designed better forks if I hadn't spent all that time though, but
Maybe we'll have to see. And I'm also curious too, from a perspective of like Bots FC in general. In the past you've brought Shatter, and this year you had an opportunity to also have a Emulsifer there and have Matt kind of branch off and lead his own team. what was that like? You know, because it's not what you're used to.
Oh, that was stressful. That was a lot of work. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, we were so heads down on Shatter sometimes, and we looked over and we were like, "Oh no, we have a second robot, and he's fighting a lot sooner than ours is, so we're gonna hop over there and help him instead." And then it's a balance. You need to understand how to work with a new team captain and a new robot. I mean, he's competed at the smaller weight classes, but this is the first time it's been scaled up like this, so new problems present themselves. Um, so we were just kind of finding the balance between which robot needed a priority by which team members. Is it an electronics issue? Is it a mechanical tuning issue? And just being there for each other, to make sure that the next fight, whatever robot was fighting, was in tip-top shape.
Yeah,
Ma-
we got everything done. We were never like we were never fighting at half power or anything like that. Like we got everything done on the robots, but it was certainly like a lot of work. We added one robot and two people. So we were running two robots with six people, whereas the year before we had one robot and four people. So it was a little bit of scaling up, and like Paul was saying, like new robot, new problems. So Shatter, we've been running it and very similar robots for years and years and years. We've got it like pretty optimized. And Emulsifer is just not at that point yet at that scale. At the smaller scale, it's pretty optimized, but the big one, it's new. So
Yeah. And I don't know if there was, I think, a picture posted on our social media, but kind of the organizational styles of the two halves of the team were a little bit disparate. Because if you looked at Shatter's pit table, it was just like hot glue stuck everywhere, and like Gatorades and monsters and just garbage. And then if you look over at Matt's pit table, it's like every single like screw that he's using is standing upright in a perfect line on the pit table. It was a really stark difference.
yeah, I think Matt's a little bit more organized than me.
I didn't talk to Matt. I just he kind of gave that vibe. So I'm not really surprised about that. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I did want to ask too, because I'm really curious about that. Like being so heavily in BattleBots and now at this point with two robots, and then also being really heavily involved in Norwalk. How hard is that to balance? I mean, I'm sure it makes it easier because you're in New York, you're not far from Norwalk, so it's not like you have to travel so much there. But I mean, does that make it challenging?
Yeah, I mean, well, we don't have to travel far for Norwalk, but when we compete with Emulsifier, Matt drives like 12 hours out from Ohio and like all at one stint. He's a maniac. But it does take a lot of effort to build those small robots. It's not as much as a heavyweight, but it's, weekends putting those robots together and going out there, and it's a lot of money that adds up. Like thankfully we've been very successful there and have been able to recoup that cost through winning the competitions that we've won. But it is it is a lot of work to build those 30 pounders and go out there, and those are long competitions. We get there at 8 a.m. and we're there past midnight. So it's they're fun. We love NHRL. They're our sponsor, and they're a great organization, sponsor for Emulsifier. But it is, it's definitely a lot of work being a top team down there. But we have a lot of fun when we go. And Paul, did
Yes.
you want to say anything about competing at NHRL?
I'll be there in May. I'm working
So
on
will
my first.
I. So will
Oh, great.
I.
We'll link up there. Yeah, I've competed with heavyweights at Robo Games in the past, but I had taken kind of a hiatus and then got involved with Shatter, and I think it's time to start building out something on my own again. So I'm working on my 30 now. It's been driving around my apartment, and it crashed into my partner's Nintendo Switch and ruined his Mario Kart streak. So he's already not so happy with me.
Yeah, that's a rough one. I will not be bringing my own robot. There is still an outside possibility that someone maybe might be making a robot for me to drive. But we'll see. We'll see if that happens.
That'd be cool. There is it's fun driving the robots. I think it's a lot more fun driving the small robots than it is driving the heavyweights. The heavyweights are like, I don't know, you got you, I don't know, there's more pressure. And also the robots go kind of like they drive differently. I think knockoff white is easier to drive than Shatter is. Maybe that's just all it is.
Yeah, I can see it though. It's, like there's more weight behind what you're driving. It's probably harder to make sure you're controlling it. Like that would just
Shatter
be my thought.
Shatter's kind of like a hovercraft, like a big heavy hovercraft, and it just wants to go where it wants to go, and I kind of guide it in different areas. Uh, Knockoff White just goes exactly where I want it to go. If I take my hands off the stick, it like immediately stops. If I turn, it turns. It's like because of the shufflers with the rubber feet and weighing 50% more than the opponent, it's just really nice to drive Knockoff White. One of our goals for next year with Shatter is like, can we make Shatter drive more like Knockoff White? Like, he obviously drives sideways, but like, that vibe of like, stop, go, turn, heavy, like push. I don't know. I like it. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. The World Championship 8 may be here sooner rather than later, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I am so excited to have had you on and talk about what you do. And I am excited to see more from Shatter and from Emulsifier and just Bots FC in general in the future.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for having us.
Yes.
Can we give some sponsor shout outs real quick?
Please do. Nobody ever asked, but please do.
Awesome. Yeah. On Shatter, our main sponsor, they've been with us for years, is Prismir, a manufacturer. They make our billet, they make all of our aluminum parts. They've been a huge partner and a huge part of our team. So we couldn't build Shatter without Prismir helping us out every year. So huge thanks to that crew for helping us out. We have a new sponsor this year, Metal Blade Records, which we're really excited about. I was telling everyone I got a record deal, so that's awesome. They're actually a label for one of the bands I like in New York City called Mother Feather, who was really fun to see live. It's like a metal label, so that was fun to get them on board. Fly Sky makes our transmitter. We switched transmitters this season. Our old ones were very old and falling apart, and we use a very interesting like knob on the end of a stick to control Shatter. And Fly Sky are the only ones making like an off-the-shelf transmitter that has that capability, and it's really awesome, really sick. So happy to have Fly Sky on board this season. TMS Titanium, been with us for years, supply all our titanium components. So the hammer arms, the front wedge, are all titanium, and they've been helping us out for a long time. We actually made a full titanium frame back in season 4, which was nuts. I think it was 4. Was it 4 or 5?
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was
remember
it
what
was 4.
Yeah. And then max amps, our batteries. If anyone saw this last week, we lost a lot of them in the fight against Beta. They got completely smushed, but they didn't light on fire. Thank you, max amps. And then Koos Yachts, which is a yacht company. But yeah, thanks to all our sponsors for helping us out.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any sponsors, but I do have subscribers. So everyone who subscribes to this YouTube channel, thank you so much. I appreciate the love and the support. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do support Combat Robotics and all of that good stuff. And we'll see everybody next time on the show.
Smash that like button and then head over to Bots FC, smash that like button, and then check out Paul's new robot and all the Bots FC robots.
All of the above. Do all of that.
Thanks.